So my topic is what sounds do monsters make. I'm from Artrix Ltd. We're up in the North Shore, a developer there. I'm the senior sound designer, which is to say I'm in charge of all the audio. Recently, early this year, we released an open beta of a game called Battle Core. Now, it's no longer on the market. It was just kind of like a beta test, and we're taking it off and we're continuing to work on it. The name change there's been a name change. It's now Monster Core Chronicles, but that's kind of not too relevant for this talk. So after the open beta, everybody, all disciplines got to kind of review what they've done in the development process and what we've done so far, what needs changing, and what worked really well. I decided I really want to kind of show off and talk a bit about the monster sounds, which really went well from my perspective, from a management point of view and just a creative point of view. So let me talk a bit about, introduce you to Monster Core Chronicles. It's a monster collection RPG. As you can see, it's very cartoony, very colorful. The game itself features a mechanical claw at the top, mimics an arcade claw machine where you pick up, fluffy toys from the bottom. In this case, you're picking up crystals and items that power up the monsters that are fighting each other on the top. Kind of simple. And yes, it's a monster collection RPG, so there's lots of monsters to collect. We released the open beta with just Act 1, and that featured just under 100 unique monsters. So there's a lot of monsters basically to collect, which means there's a lot of monsters to create audio for. And first and foremost, there's a lot of monsters to actually animate and design. So when I first heard, when I was first introduced to the game, when I came on board, I thought, right, there's a lot of monsters, we're releasing on mobile, I want to keep it nice and efficient, small size. Different monsters have different element types, like some are based on fire, some are based on water, your kind of classic, paper, rock, scissors. So I thought I'd create fire attack sounds that I could use for fire monsters. A general pool of water attack sounds, so I could use it for water monsters. It's going to be a little bit dynamic. It's going to work great. I'm going to save on space. But if you see these monsters here, they're a bit quirky and unique. And like at the very top, you see two blue monsters. One's a submarine, one's a plane. And I don't think the audio would translate very well if I just used like splashing sounds for a monster like that. It just wouldn't work. I very quickly realized that the art team and the animation team did a really great job of putting character into these visuals. And this is the first fire monster I saw. And when I saw the animation of one of his attacks, I realized I had to do something special too. So this is the animation I saw. How can I play this? Oh, that's a little one. So that's really cool. That's kind of a classic cartoon style, very comical, and there's no way I'm going to be using generic sounds drawn from a pool for that. So just to give you an idea, this is what I envisioned these creatures would sound like. So I think you'd agree that the animation is unique, the characters are quirky and unique, and I knew the audio had to match. So what happens is, with a lot of monsters, hundreds of monsters, we need a proper pipeline and a process. So how it works here is, as much as I love looking at the concept stuff our artists do, I only really come into play once the animation is finished and the animators have integrated the monsters into our actual game. At that point, I get a little notification. The notification tells me, hey, it's your turn to do the audio. and that's where the audio pipeline comes in. Now, I'll go over the pipeline later on. What I want to do now is just jump straight into some examples of the result. So I'm going to show you 4 monsters I worked on and try to explain why I did the things I did. So this is another fire monster. It's 3 slices of bread with fried eggs as eyes and bacon for a moustache. It's visually comical. It's attacked, as you'll see in a moment. It throws itself against its opponents to hurt them. And I just made a note of it opens its mouth during its special attack and its victory animation. So I work in Reaper just before I play the animation. So again, there's a lot of monsters to do. I can't overcomplicate things, and generally speaking, you should be keeping it simple anyway. So there's not a lot of layers. Even if there are, there's no more than 2 or 3, sometimes 4 source audio files trigger off at any one time. And the first pass is usually just the sound effects to give the monster a bit of character. This is what I came up with. So it's kind of cool, it works, you know. I gave the impact some wet sounds, but if you notice, it's missing something, right? We can do more to give a character. So not only did I decide that every single monster is going to have unique sounds, but every single monster will need its own VO. And because of time and budget, I'll be doing majority of the voices. So this is what I came up with. Now this particular monster is nothing too exciting, but it adds to the character. So I've isolated the VO. It's not character. I might have been a little bit influenced by the but you know, for copyright reasons, it's a little bit different. And again, nothing too elaborate. When you put the sound effects and VO together, you kind of get the final. But yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. It's cool, simple, unique. Gives the bread fire monster character. And yeah, I'm just going to move on to the next monster. Anyway, I just randomly chose 4 monsters from what we've released so far. So the Firelight monster, first thing I think of when I see this is it's obviously a mix between a wasp and a fairy. It has tiny little wings. I feel it's quite small. You can tell by the idle animation and the way artists have put the staff in, the hands, it's quite heavy. Even though it looks like just a stick, it's very heavy. So to me that meant this is a ethereal kind of fantasy creature. It should be tiny. For obvious reasons, we can't just put in a 4 or 5 pixel monster on the screen, otherwise you won't be able to see any of the detail. But I can try and make it sound smaller with the audio design. So what I did is use creatively a lot of reverb. And the reason I did this is I wanted to make it sound like there was this little fairy somewhere around you that you could hear, that it's somewhere around you, you're hearing reverberation, but you just can't see it, even though visually it's right in front of you. I mean, usually you use reverb to make something sound bigger, but when you do that, that's usually with lower frequencies or mid-frequencies, which is to say a big roar, it's low. But if you combine heavy reverb with something cute and high-pitched, you're generally thinking, actually that's kind of closer to me, and it's not as intimidating. So this is the full mix of Firelight. So just by sound, again, visually it almost lines up with all the other monsters on screen. But just to show you how much of an effect the reverb has on this character, I'm going to remove all the effects, and this is just the source audio with all the effects turned off. Again, the actual source audio is very short and not overcomplicated. And one thing you have to do is, if you're going to be using heavy reverb, that creates layers, which is to say it creates that tail, that thing you hear fading off. And you never want to have too many things going off at once, because then the mix becomes quite muddy and you lose clarity. So this is the same monster without any of the effects on. So. And again, I'll just quickly replay the full effect. You kind of get the idea. Okay, next monster. The floaty spiky crystal monster thing. I don't know why it's one of my favorite monsters. So I did choose him as bias. I did choose this monster to talk about today. He's small, spiky, he's a crystal, he's got no pupils, he's just got these empty eyes. He's supposed to be a dark monster, like a little bit evil, but again, he's to me, he's like a little crystal ball, just misunderstood. His attacks include sending crystal shards at opponents, and to me, he's had one too many Red Bulls, he's mildly manic, energetic, moves around. You can see in his idle animation already, he can't stop moving. And because I have to voice hundreds of monsters by myself at this stage, I have to mask my voice very, very often in very creative ways. So for this monster, what I wanted to do is a crystal. So I use lots of glass sources, like crushing glass. I put some effects over them to make it sound cool, kind of reverse reverb and whatnot. But then I did the same thing to my VO, so that my VO is so masked you can't tell it's me, and it becomes like a character in itself. So I'll play his full audio. So he's a little bit crazy. He wants to hurt things, but he doesn't know why. But here you can hear all the effects turned off, and what you can hear what really stands out here is my VO, and just I guess how much it's changed. If I were to leave this VO, it wouldn't be the same, and it wouldn't be as nice a character in my opinion. So. That's me. And the cool thing about using creative ways to mask your voice is that I could use that character in another monster if I wanted to, because I've used the effects to cover this up. For all you know, another monster is using that, and it just saves you on, I guess, creative ideas. And yeah, I need a lot of ideas for voices. And the final monster I want to show you is the submarine monster. Metallic submarine. There's a giant eye through porthole. Visually realistic yet comical. And when I say realistic, I mean more realistic to attack. You'd be more likely to be attacked by a submarine than 3 slices of bread. So in our world, this really is a more realistic kind of aggressor. And it attacks opponents with various gadgets, as you'll see in the animations. It's got a laser periscope, it poops out bombs, which it sends at its opponents, and it has 2 nuclear missiles hidden somewhere in its body. So yeah. Again, the layering is very simple, not a lot of sound. You don't need to complicate your layers. Just keep it simple. Otherwise, you really want definition in little bits and pieces. I'm not sure if you can see that, but so this is the sound effects only. That Beatrix, it's not very notorious, is it? But what can you do? And again, this is why I'm so glad I decided to do video, because it makes all the difference. Now this is the video, raw video without any effects on. So this is me. So I'm not going to win any awards for that. But the idea is, of course, to use effects creatively. I imagine this monster, I'm not sure if the monster's eye is the submarine or if there's someone stuck in there. But I'm seeing an eye, I'm not seeing a mouth. If this monster is going to talk, he's going to talk with his mouth closed, which is why I recorded my mouth closed. But he's inside, or it's inside the tank. And what do you hear if you make noise inside a small metallic compartment? Generally it's called like a plate verb or something. It's got lots of very quick reflections. So this is what it sounds like, my video with the inside the submarine effects on. It sounds a little bit more interesting, a better character. And of course, when you put it all together, the sound effects and video, you get something that sounds more complete. So there's continuity. Always animations, you expect to hear something, a reaction from the character, from the monster. And that's what you need. Because again, we could have video just for the special attack, but then, and I tried that at a very early point, but there was something missing in his normal attacks. And you could hear the metallic clanking or the laser, but it just wasn't the same. And when you hear the video, it makes a difference. So yeah, there are just a few examples I wanted to show. Of course, I'm running out of time. So just very quickly, to make this possible, I'll take you through the monster audio creation pipeline. And this is the whole process. This is how I'm set up. So what happens is, when I get that notification that a monster is ready, it's up to me to capture the animation and put them into my digital audio workstation. Now, I could request for other team members, such as an animator, to prepare these for me every time. But in my experience, and I've been doing this for a while, that's not very efficient and it becomes frustrating for everyone involved. So the best thing to do is to make sure that you're able to complete everything from the very start to the very end by yourself. And it's not a hard thing to do. You just need to have access to the software, in this case the animation software the animators are working on. That way you're able to open their final source files and record out anything you need. If I decide to add sounds to the same monster, but an extra animation that was added, I can just go in, get the latest files, record that new attack or whatever it is, and throw it into my digital audio workstation. Obviously, if you're working on a project, you need access to the source files. In our case, we do it through a repo, SVN, and you need to add video capture. And as I'm video capturing, it's not wasted time, because as I'm video capturing these animations, I'm already getting initial ideas of what I want to do with the monster. Whether does it need funny video, does it need more serious video, does it look like an animal, and maybe I could source the audio, the video from real animal sounds. The fun part is the sound design. So as you saw before, the sound effects only part comes first. I usually do a concept, and once that concept is complete for all the animations, I then review it, see what needs to change, see if it's working, and if I feel it is, just record the video at that point. And once the video is in, is it blocking any of the sound effects? Should I move things around? And hopefully by the end of that process, I get a final render. And when I get a final render, I integrate it into the game to attach to all the animators I've already put in. And again, that just means inputting it into the game engine, attaching it to the monsters, testing it. We have great coders who set us up with dev tools and test beds so we can test the animations with sounds. They've also created a little tool that allows us to pit any monsters against each other and fight, so that we can see how it actually sounds in battle. Because what you're hearing, or what you've heard so far, is just the raw, the base animation sounds. Along with that is you hear impact sounds. If they die, you hear their dying reaction sounds. There's a lot going on, plus the music, so yeah. And of course, once I'm happy with all that, I go back to the notification, I click on that same link, and I'm able to tick that off as complete. So, and I have to do that for each and every monster. And how many people here in audio, by the way? So, well, anyone can guess, but the whole process between, as soon as I get a notification, going through all this, happy with it in the game, signing it off, how long do you think that process might take? Anybody? Throw out some numbers.
3 days.
3 days? Anyone else?
1 month.
Sorry?
1 month.
1 month?
3 hours.
3, 4 hours. Yeah. You're good. No, it takes me 6 to 8 hours, so just under a day. Again, if you were to say go with 1 month or 3 days, and I've told you that there's over 100, well over 100 monsters, realistically, how long is that going to take? So at the very beginning, you really have to you really need to know what you're doing, what you're capable of, that you have the equipment to do it, the tools, and yeah. And I'll just very quickly say that when I say it takes me a day, there's hardly ever a time where I do one monster at a time. So what I'll do is wait for 4 or 5 notifications to come up. I get a bunch of monsters, record them, do the concept, and what's good about that is between that concept and review stage, you really need a break. As most people know, sometimes when you work on something for a whole day, you're really excited about it. It sounds like the best thing ever, and then you come back the next day and suddenly it sounds like terrible. Thinking, why could I not hear how bad this was yesterday? Basically, e-fatigue, and yeah. So the review stage really should not occur straight after you concept it. As you're concepting it, let it go, let it rest, move on to another monster, come back a day or 2 later, and then do the review, and then record the video all together. That's pretty much it. 2024, yay! Thank you.